wanted to start my little piece today on ideas, not attributes, on the daily summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. By the way, I'm your host. I'm Kurt, and today is Saturday, the 11th of September of 2021. Welcome to everyone who's here on Rumble, on the podcast, and on YouTube. Remember, Rumble is my preferred platform. And again, I'm going to talk about the subject of ideas, not attributes. And I think it's a particularly apt thing because I don't want to talk about, I'm not going to dedicate this by any means to the September 11 anniversary, which this is the 20th anniversary of that fateful day. I did want to express my condolences to everyone who lost, whether it was people who were in the towers or in the Pentagon or on that plane that landed in the field or that crashed in the field, or firefighters and police officers and so forth. I wanted to express my condolences to anybody who lost folks in that, and I wanted to also make sure that I made a note that there are people out there whose lives were forever changed, whether they were directly involved, directly affected by the 9/11 attacks, or whether they had family members who were affected, or whatever it happened to be. There are people whose lives were changed forever by that day, and I want you to realize that there are people out there who are thinking about and praying for you on an ongoing basis, and that's something that I don't think will ever stop, and even probably until that day is forgotten in the annals of history largely, which I don't think it'll ever happen completely, but I think, generally events don't tend to be remembered forever very much. That's just how that works. Anyway, in all of that, I wanted to talk about this idea of ideas, not attributes. And let me go ahead and go through my notes, and hopefully this will give you an idea what I'm sort of talking about. And then let me go from there to sort of expand on what I'm saying. Do you make judgment about others as a result of seeing them? There are times when that can be a reasonable thing. If you see a person coming at you with a menacing look on their face, it may be time to take some protective or evasive action. When it comes to somebody's political affiliation or their philosophical viewpoints, it's a good deal harder to base a decision on looks alone. The reality is, when you see that person looking like they're out to rob you, you make a snap judgment. That conclusion you come to might be totally wrong. You do that out of self-preservation. You do what you do out of self-preservation. When dealing with deeper things, though, it's rarely good to form a perspective without at least talking with the person in question. Part of the point of what I'm saying here is you should pretty much never cement a viewpoint on who somebody might be based on something like the color of their skin, the clothes they wear, or whatever, right? Bad enough you may be confused about a person due to the way they appear to be acting or how they're dressed. Making your decision based on attributes is a thing that almost always calls for care. Doing so on properties of a person, or properties a person can't change with any ease, is nearly universally a bad thing. In the end, where humanly possible, it should be ideas, not attributes, that cause us to form our image of others. So, I want to start with the idea that a person is black or white or Asian or whatever, from whatever particular group. And I want to point out that those people pretty much can't change where they were born or where their family came from, whatever it happens to be. They can't change that. So for that person, if you make judgments, decide who that person is based on that fact, whether they're black, whether they're white, whether they're Asian or whatever, it's almost impossible for you not to potentially make bad judgments as a result of that. And that's true when you look at the guys, for example, who did the 9/11 attacks. You can't look at the fact that they were Arabs, for example, and say, oh, they're horrible people because they're Arabs. Because among the Arabs are bound to be some good people and are bound to be some bad ones. Instead, if you look at the ideas that they held, you begin to understand where the problem lies. These people were not just Islamic. And again, you can't, even with something like Islam, you can't say all of the people who support Islam are bad people. But you certainly can say that there are groups of people who are radical in their beliefs, and that those people are holding ideas that are bad ones. So even sometimes with ideas, it's a bad idea to make, it's a bad thing to do to make a decision who a person is based on those ideas, unless you really understand what it is that those people believe. As I say, look, I know some Muslim folks, and I'm not going to tell you that every one of them is a wonderful human being. But I am going to tell you that some of those people are pretty wonderful individuals. And I feel bad for them, and you can say what you want about this, because as a Christian, I believe they're confused about what they believe. But that having been said, I still cannot take away from the kind of people they are because they happen to be Muslim as opposed to being Christian. I have friends who would give you the shirt off of their back if they felt like you were in sufficient need. They would try to help you, they would do things for you, and they would be good people for you to go to and to deal with. That's just reality and something that you need to understand. And they're Muslim. I'm talking about Muslim people. I have Christian friends who you don't want to go to if you're in trouble or have problems, because they're not going to help you. In fact, if anything, they're more likely than not to ridicule you. I know people. I shouldn't say I have friends, because I don't typically count people who are willing to do that sort of thing as friends, whether they're Muslim or Christian. But here again, the first point that I wanted to draw today is if a person's black, or if they're Hispanic, or if they're Indian, or if they're from India, Native American, either one, frankly. If they have a wide nose or a thin one, or a wide forehead or a thin one, or a small head or a big one, or they're tall or they're short, these are not the things upon which, as a rule, you should be making pronouncements about who those individuals are. That's just not how that should work. Those individuals are who they are. You should come to know the individual before you come to conclusions about who that person might be. Now, I'm going to say this again. Look, we're visual. Dan Bongino has a habit, and rightly so, of saying, and I'll make a caveat here, of there are people out there who are visually impaired. They can't see, or they can see darkly or whatever, dimly or whatever you might want to say. They don't have that visual acuity that makes it so that they can use visual cues to determine what it is that they're trying to figure out or determine. But for the rest of us, even for those of us that, like me, wear glasses in order to improve our ability to see, for those people, we're looking at things, and sight is one of the very first things that most of us have to decide how we're going to react or respond to things that are going on around us. Okay? So it's not surprising that people, when they see somebody running at them or whatever, as I said in my introduction, that they take evasive action or that they try to protect themselves. But the thing that you need to understand is that may be fine for initial responses, and even then you have to be careful about doing it. But it's not a good idea when you get to know people and come to understand them at all. And this is what I'm trying to get across. It's bad enough when you're looking at ideas and you mistakenly assume things about what other people believe, what they assume, what they hold true, and what they hold valid. Again, Christianity and Islam are both great examples of this. There are Christians who will harm people when they have absolutely no business doing so, and there are Muslims who are peaceful, wonderful, happy human beings, whether or not I believe them to be confused about what they believe. That's beside the point, right? That's what they are. They're good people. So it's hard enough when you're working on ideas, but when you work on attributes of a person's physicality particularly, but attributes of a given person, it's almost impossible. You literally can do better off of how they dress, and you can't really do all that well out of that. You definitely can do better out of looking at their ideas, and you have to be very careful about that. So I would say to you that you need to look at ideas, not attributes, and you need to be careful when you look at ideas, right? Again, the 9/11 terrorists were bad folks. Not all Muslims, as a result, are bad folks. That's a reality. Okay, I need to go ahead and wrap this up, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. This is the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host. I'm Kurt. Today is September 11th, the anniversary of the attack on the Twin Towers, the Pentagon, and the attempted attack on was either the Capitol or the White House, depending on who you ask. Tomorrow is going to be the 12th of September of 2021. Thank you for everyone who's been here on Rumble, on the podcast, and on YouTube. The subject for today has been ideas, not attributes, and I really think you need to take that into consideration when you look at people. Not to say that you always have the luxury of doing that, but as a general rule, I think that you can do that. Tomorrow, we're going to talk on something that was brought out by a couple of pieces that Mr. Dinesh D'Souza has done with regard to the idea of a matter of perspective. And I hope to give you something to think about. And that piece, it's going to be largely about Christianity, but there's going to be more to it where that's concerned as well. Hope you're having a good day today. If you're a observer of the Sabbath, hope your Sabbath is being a good one. Hope things are going well for you in general, and hopefully we will see you again on Sunday's edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This video was recorded on Saturday, the 11th of September of 2021. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for watching this edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I hope you found it entertaining or instructional, or maybe both. If you want to see more from me, you can go to blogs.kpschubert.com. That's blogs.kpschubert.com. I am on Twitter, Parler, and Minds.com. My handle on each of those is @kpschubert. That's @kpschubert. I have a Rumble and a YouTube channel. They are the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels on Rumble and YouTube. I have a Facebook page. The Facebook page is Kurt's Religion and Politics as well. I am on Patreon. If you want to support me, that's one of the better places you can do that. And you will find me at Kurt's Religion and Politics on Patreon. I have a podcast. The podcast is podcasts with an S. .kpschubert.com. That's podcasts.kpschubert.com. I think you should be able to find me with relative ease on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify as well. The best way I find to do that is to look for Kurt's Religion and Politics. You can try to use the Daily Summation. I find that it doesn't work as well as a general rule, but you can always try that. I'm glad to have you aboard today, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow.